Have you ever sensed something about a situation was off before it spiraled into chaos or fell apart? And then you later thought, I really should have trusted that. Have you ever gotten a flash of clarity and then within seconds you buried it under logic or fear or whatever story your childhood handed to you? Have you felt disconnected from your true self for so long that your intuition and your divinity feel like a foreign language and concept? In today's episode, we are going to dive deep into one of my favorite topics, our extrasensory perceptions and abilities, or our spiritual gifts, which include intuition and the clairs, which are primarily clairvoyance, claircognizance, clairsentience, and clairaudience. We all have spiritual gifts and abilities because we are spirit first, human second. However, for most people, their intuition and spiritual abilities are muted, suppressed, and misunderstood and feared. So most people move through life disconnected from their intuition or not trusting it and never accessing or utilizing their divine gifts, which means they're relying largely on reasoning, logic, and conforming to cultural norms that glorify sensibleness and villainize sensitivity. And that means that most people are needlessly struggling through life and moving through life disconnected from their authenticity, disconnected from their highest self and their highest truths and their highest timeline, which of course makes healing way more difficult, achieving your goals way more difficult, and aligning with your highest good and path way more difficult. Welcome to The Simple Source, a paradigm-shifting space where self-love, healing, spirituality, and personal growth are redefined. If you've been told healing takes years, that abundance must be attracted, or that transformation requires struggle, you haven't been told the truth. I'm Linda Villines, a certified trauma-informed holistic coach, author, and spiritual guide. After healing myself from chronic conditions, complex trauma, and lack, not by following traditional frameworks, but by creating my own, I'm now teaching you to love, heal, and free yourself, mind, body, and soul, so you can reclaim your highest health, happiness, and potential with joy and ease. Each week, we go beyond surface-level self-help and into the real mechanics of transformation. If the traditional paths to healing and spirituality haven't produced the changes you want in the life you desire, you're in the right place. You were never meant to struggle or wait for what is already yours. Let's get started with today's episode. So, if you feel disconnected from your intuition and your spiritual abilities, it's not because you lack any extrasensory perceptions. You feel disconnected because those innate capacities were conditioned out of you. Not intentionally necessarily, not maliciously, but through a culture that normalizes believing that only what can be measured deserves to be trusted. And most people misunderstand what intuition is because we're not taught to harness it. We're not taught to trust it. But the truth is, intuition is intrinsic to your being. It's biological, it's energetic, and you, my friend, you and your reality are made of energy. And intuition is simply your highest consciousness communicating with you in the most efficient way possible. And yet most of us got taught to treat it like it's unreliable, not serious, or impractical. We live in a world that rewards predictability and performance and rationality. But your intuition is a different type of genius, but no less valid, okay? It's a type of genius that notices patterns before they form into facts. It's a type of genius that picks up signals that your conscious mind can't interpret yet. It's the part of you that says, this isn't logical, but it is true. So when you're disconnected from that innate genius in you, it's not a symptom of your human or even spiritual deficiency. It's just a symptom of nervous system overwhelm and cultural conditioning. So if your system has been chronically bracing for life, emotionally, physically, mentally, energetically, of course your intuitive channels got quiet. When your body is chronically dysregulated and overwhelmed, it prioritizes survival, not subtle perception. So it's not that your intuition and spiritual gifts have vanished if you feel disconnected from them. They were just sidelined into the background in lieu of survival. So this episode isn't about helping you discover your intuition and spiritual gifts. It's about helping you remember that you never lost them. They've been there the whole friggin' time, even if they were running in the background on silent mode or in survival mode. But they've been waiting for you to stop overthinking, stop overriding, stop outsourcing your own knowing. And once you remember how powerful you are, your healing, your reality, relationships, your entire life is going to dramatically improve for the magical and the extraordinary. Now, before we break down intuition and get into the nuances of the clairs, I want to share a little bit about my own development of my spiritual abilities. So after my husband passed away 9 years ago, he came to me. I saw him, we talked, and it changed my life because it broke the illusion and the confusion of separation, and it answered the question of what happens after we die. And the answer is only our body dies, and we are not our bodies. Our bodies are the vehicles for our souls. We are spirit. We are consciousness. We are eternal, infinite beings. So there really is no death. And so after my husband came to me, I had an involuntary Kundalini awakening, and then all of my spiritual faculties came online. Not to the degree that they're at now, but my clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance, and clairsentient abilities awakened after that involuntary Kundalini awakening. Now I'm going to explain exactly what those clairs are later, but essentially I began to see, hear, feel, and know things beyond the ordinary, quote unquote, limited human senses, meaning I became attuned to subtle energies, to spirit, and to other dimensions and higher frequencies so that I could see, hear, and feel them. And as I became more spiritually awakened and evolved, I then met my highest self, like literally, not symbolically, and I developed a relationship with them. I call him Blue because he presents as a giant blue being of light. And then I learned to channel, and then I began a relationship with my guardian angel and my spirit guides. And so for the past 9 years, I've been on a dynamic and really magical and wholly satisfying, very fun spiritual adventure, developing my spiritual abilities and knowledge and self. And then at the start of this year, I had a quantum leap in my abilities where my clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, and claircognizance all accelerated to new and unprecedented levels. And now I can hear high-pitched tones and frequencies 24/7. So there's no such thing as silence for me anymore. And this is not tendinitis because these tones and these frequencies change. They're dynamic. It changes when I touch objects, enter different rooms, etc. And, I can hear the anahata nada, which is the sound of the universe all the time. I can hear when the energies in a room change. I can hear when temporal harmonics change. I can hear frequencies and sounds beyond the normal human auditory range 24/7 without trying, naturally now. And I could also now see over 25 different types of energy and pre-energy. When I say pre-energy, this is like substratum layers of reality, structural, architectural layers, including quantum energy. And this is with my eyes open and eyes closed. And again, this is 24/7. I don't have to try. It's very natural for me. And so there's no such thing as darkness for me anymore, too. Even with my eyes closed, and even with zero lights on in the middle of the night when it's supposed to be pitch dark, there's no such thing as darkness to me. It's just the dark, quote unquote, dark is actually filled with light, filled with color. I can see my own consciousness as color streams. I can see quantum fields. I can see zero-point energy void currents. I can see the geometry and architecture and fields of reality, and not symbolically, literally. And I can also now literally feel the subtle energy fields, and I can also move subtle energy like all the time at my will in all directions and through objects in space. And my entire nervous system and body are even scalar electric now, so I can feel electromagnetism in my body, in my field, in the space around me, in the fields around me. And, sometimes I accidentally electrocute myself or electrocute my dog. Anyways, but that's just like a brief summary of my extrasensory, multidimensional quantum abilities, because there's a whole lot more that I can see, feel, sense, touch, and move. But, that's not the point of this episode. But I didn't train for any of this. This all spontaneously and naturally emerged at the beginning of this year. What I just described to you, my quantum leap and my extrasensory, multidimensional abilities, because I achieved like deep emotional release after focusing on a lot of inner child healing, prioritizing somatic release, emotional liberation. And also, too, this is huge, I reclaimed my sovereignty. Now, I did a whole episode about this called Why I Stopped Manifesting, and my 4-month quantum shift after that goes into all the deets about all of this and all my multidimensional sight and abilities. So if you're curious, you should listen to that episode if you haven't yet. But basically, having my spiritual gifts awaken, develop, and quantum leap at the beginning of this year, it's really made every single aspect of my life better. Way more fun, number one. Way more magical as well. And certainly way more aligned with my highest self and my highest timeline. I am clear about what my highest path, purpose, and timeline are. I am clear about which relationships serve me and which do not. I do not settle anymore in my life because I am fully aligned with my highest self, not my wounded lower self. I don't have any issues making decisions. I don't have any issues trusting my healing or how my life unfolds. I don't have any anxiety about anything, about whether or not I will achieve what I want to achieve, because I know I live with the certainty that I already have everything that I want. I live with magic. I live in the adventure. And so the awakening and development of my spiritual gifts have undoubtedly improved my healing, my regulation, my relationships, my identity, and my expression in life. In fact, I rely on my spiritual gifts every single day, meaning I use them every single day because they're just natural to me. Now they're just so integrated. I don't have to think about them. They're just a part of my being. And they allow me to show up in my life with confidence and courage and curiosity and wonder, which of course means that my relationship with myself and my relationship with my life is so liberated from all the distorted limitations that so many people feel burdened by. And so that also means that my reality is extraordinarily magical, and not just sometimes, but every single day. Now, to be clear, the awakening and development of my spiritual abilities was not chaotic. It was not disorienting. It was not overwhelming. It's been joyful. It's been expansive and stabilizing, actually, and fully liberating. Many people think that developing spiritual abilities is like intense or destabilizing, but it doesn't have to be. That's a distortion of the truth, that our spiritual abilities are natural to us. And when we embrace that fact, and when we heal ourselves productively so that our nervous systems return to coherence, they emerge, not through chaos, but through liberation and empowerment and joy. So now I want to start talking about intuition, because that is the bridge between our human and our spiritual abilities. Many people misunderstand what intuition is, so let's try to define it clearly. Now, everyone is intuitive. We're all intuitive beings. So if you feel disconnected from your intuition, it's not because you don't have it. It's just been muted. It's just been suppressed. Now, a lot of people think intuition is like some random cosmic hunch, some abstract spiritual nudge, or some undefined sixth sense. But your intuition is one of the most sophisticated perceptual systems that your consciousness has and expresses through your mind, body, soul system. It's a full spectrum, multi-layered form of perception. And most people don't realize how sensitive their nervous systems are. Your nervous system is constantly scanning micro signals like tone, timing, feeling, postures, inconsistencies, patterns, energetic shifts. And that happens so quickly that your conscious mind can't really catch up. Like your pattern recognition circuitry, especially in your brain's predictive coding networks, is constantly forecasting what's likely to happen like a split second before you consciously perceive it. So yes, your highest consciousness utilizes your brain for your intuition, and your intuition often shows up in that tiny, brilliant gap. And then there's the part of you that science calls the biofield, and what ancient traditions call your subtle energy systems, your subtle energetic bodies. And so that field is not imaginary, it's measurable, and certain clairvoyants can see it. And that field extends beyond your physical body in a way that allows you to register information before your brain interprets it. So you can think of it like your consciousness is a part of that field, and that field is like an early detection radar. It picks up coherence and incoherence, truth or distortion, alignment or friction, the energies of your environment, the space, other people, objects, animals, all of it. And your brain labels it later, but your field actually perceives it first. Now, consciousness is not confined to your brain. Contrary to materialistic and antiquated viewpoints, your consciousness is not an emergent aspect of your brain. The truth is, your brain is a vehicle for your consciousness to explore, evolve, express itself. And so the brain really is the instrument for consciousness. And the nature of consciousness being unconfinable and infinite means that your consciousness interacts with potentials, not just outcomes. And so when you have an intuitive hit or feeling or knowing about something that hasn't happened yet, it's not because you're necessarily psychic. It's just because your consciousness is interfacing with possibilities in a non-local way, because that is the nature of consciousness. So non-locality is a phenomenon in quantum physics, and it's the ability of entangled particles to be connected instantaneously, regardless of the distance, quote unquote, distance separating them. Now, here's a crucial distinction to understand. Intuition is not your system guessing between entangled possibilities, because guessing is random. Intuition is your brain, your body, your field, processing information with a far higher level of coherence than just the logical part of your brain can access. So intuition is your entire system collaborating across multiple dimensions: neurological, physiological, energetic, and consciousness-based, to get you the most accurate signal available. And many people don't trust their intuition because they think intuition is unproven, when actually, in reality, it's just simply unpracticed. They mistake subtlety for unreliability, not realizing that subtle systems are actually the most advanced and most widespread in reality. They think the unseen is unreal, when in truth, most of reality is invisible to the average human visual perceptive range. Like ChatGPT said, the average human can only see 0.00001% of all of reality. I think there's 5 or 6 zeros. I don't remember correctly, but it's one of those. I mean, it's an infinitesimal amount that the average human can actually see of all of reality. Like, you can't see gamma rays or ultraviolet light, but they are as real as can be. So your intuition is just as real. It's just that you can't measure it, and that's fine. That's neither here nor there. So your intuition is just as real. It's just not necessarily measurable. But that isn't the point of intuition, okay? It doesn't have to be measured to be real. And so your intuition is a fully holistic, innate, and also fully equipped perceptual mechanism that does integrate your brain, your body, your nervous system, your soul, and your consciousness and your field. And so you can't be disconnected from a system that's like built into the architecture of your very existence. You can only be discouraged from understanding it, from using it. For most of human history, intuition was like normal. But then with scientific progress, the expansion of centralized power, and educational models that standardize behavior, that's when the intuition equals irrational narrative emerged. Now, it's not like everyone sat around like a table and said, you know what, let's devalue intuition. It's just that eventually large scale systems naturally rewarded what they could measure, what they could control. Now, that is necessary for scientific progress, but it also unintentionally created like a hierarchy where inner knowing was viewed as less respectable, less trustworthy, or unscientific. Inner knowing or higher knowing can't be measured or controlled, and so it became devalued. And then also industrialization and modern capitalism push linear productivity, output, sameness, and efficiency. And none of those play well with subtle perception. And so we learn to prioritize logic because the world trained us that way. And we learn to doubt our intuition because entire systems were built on the assumption that inner knowing is unreliable because it can't be measured by some instrument. And then also there's the universality of trauma, both personal and generational. You know, when people are stuck in survival mode, they override their inner signals because they don't feel safe enough to even follow them. Survival rewires perception away from subtlety and towards scanning for threat. So intuition then becomes background noise when your body is constantly stressed and constantly bracing for impact. So it's not a mystery why most people don't trust their inner knowing and intuition, which is also like another way of saying why people don't trust themselves. It's not because you're like truly disconnected. It's because we inherited an entire world and with global systems that taught us to mute our sensitivity and higher guidance. But the good news is, friend, that what was learned can be unlearned. So now that you have a better understanding of what intuition is, why it's been devalued, meaning why you don't trust it, why you feel disconnected from it, let's talk about the clairs, which are really an extension on top of the foundation of intuition. So most people think of the clairs as supernatural, like special gifts that only certain people have, when in truth, they're just different ways that your energy centers, neural pathways, and nervous system collaborate and process multidimensional information. And anyone can develop them because everybody has them. Now, there are 4 main clairs or types of extrasensory perceptions and abilities. First, there's clairvoyance or clear seeing. This one gets all the attention because it sounds super glamorous, because it's linked to like psychics and mediums, but it's basically your inner visual cortex receiving instead of producing imagery. So clairvoyance runs through your third eye chakra, right? The energy center that interfaces with imagination, insight, visual processing, and the occipital lobe. And clairvoyance can manifest as flashes of images, symbols, scenes, and other types of inner or external visuals that are genuine perception, right? Not fabrication, meaning not imagined, not hallucinated. And there are different types of clairvoyance. So some people primarily see visions of the past, present, and or future. And that's what people think of when they think of psychics. Some people can literally see spirits and interdimensional beings, which are mediums. And some people can literally see subtle energies like auras, biofields, other different forms of energy and energy fields. So clairvoyance is basically just extrasensory, multidimensional or interdimensional subtle sight. And then there is clairaudience or clear hearing. This is not about hearing voices in the psychosis sense. It is perceiving subtle and real information in the language your brain recognizes as sound, like tones, words, communicative guidance, frequencies, or internal directionality, like from your highest self. And so the throat chakra and the auditory cortex connect here, and they translate subtle energetic information into inner sound. So clairaudience can manifest as telepathy often, which just means being able to communicate or talk with other people's consciousnesses and spirits because you can hear them, their voices. Like you can hear deceased loved ones, hearing your spirit guides, angels, highest self, etc. It can also manifest as hearing light language or hearing unseen music, hearing distinct high frequencies, tones in your ear that are not tinnitus, hearing sounds and noises that you can't see the source of in your physical reality, but come from another dimension or spirit or entity. And then there's claircognizance or clear knowing. Now, intuition is like loosely a form of claircognizance, but claircognizance is different and nuanced. So claircognizance is the ability to have an immediate, clear knowing without any logical explanation. So claircognizance interfaces with your crown chakra and the prefrontal cortex, meaning awareness and subtle energy communicate so quickly that your conscious mind receives the information, the conclusion, the knowledge without ever moving through a cognitive process. And that's because your conscious mind is just getting a higher dimensional download of knowledge or some insight or a fact that is not connected to your immediate or past experience. It just arrives as a clear, certain, and undeniable knowing. And then there's clairsentience or clear feeling. And this is when you can literally, physically sense or feel subtle energies and fields, like as physical or inner sensations, meaning emotional fields, collective fields, energetic fields. And it's basically like your body acting like a tuning fork. And so this one runs through your heart chakra, your sacral chakra, and the enteric nervous system, which is why you feel truth in your chest, in your heart, or in your gut. So this is the ability to feel the texture of information and energy, not just the content. So clairsentience can manifest as being able to feel other people's emotions, past, present, or future, and the emotions attached to environments, to objects. It can manifest as sensing what is happening in another person's body. It can manifest as feeling like sudden chills or getting goosebumps or like your chest tightening around certain people or in certain environments. It can manifest as feeling the presence of spirit or spiritual energy in your environment and having strong physical reactions to any type of energy that can sometimes result in you feeling like nauseous or overwhelmed or oddly fatigued, etc. So empaths are clairsentient, but not all clairsentients are necessarily like empaths. Now, beyond the major clairs, there's also clairgustance or clear tasting and clear olfaction or clear smelling. I hope I said those correctly. So now those are not as commonly awakened or developed, but they are very powerful too. They're both connected to the throat and root chakras and the olfactory and gustatory cortices, which are regions that are deeply tied to memory and instinct and energetic printing. And so those clairs basically translate subtle information through taste, through smell. And again, they're not as common, but when they show up, it is precise. I've had a couple of instances of them, but they're not my major clairs. The truth is, none of these abilities are like quote unquote advanced or only for spiritually evolved people. Many people naturally experience these in subtle ways, but they discount those experiences. They minimize them or they don't trust them. Everyone is capable of developing these clairs, and naturally having them already developed doesn't make you special. It just means that your soul chose to experience them earlier and more naturally in this life for specific reasons. But regardless, these clairs don't make anybody special because they're innate to everyone. You know, they're just not necessarily awakened or developed in everyone. But when they are, I mean, that doesn't make you any better than anyone else. They just make you more functional, honestly. They allow you to operate multidimensionally, which is important because you are a multidimensional being. Now, most people have a tendency toward one or a couple of clairs, meaning most people can more easily develop like clairvoyance or clairsentience. But like me, it is possible to have all the major clairs awakened and developed equally. So now let's talk about the process of awakening and developing the clairs. So your brain is already wired for non-local perception. Quantum biology is a real field of science, and it has already revealed that biological systems respond to information that doesn't arrive through the physical senses first. Okay, so that's not like magic, it's just natural coherence, meaning that's how you operate optimally, naturally. And the crown and third eye chakras interface with this non-locality. And that gives your consciousness access to information before your body registers it or your brain registers it. So if you've ever known something without knowing why you knew what you knew, that's why. Because even on a biological level, you're operating multidimensionally. And your heart is actually another major player in this. The electromagnetic field of your heart is strong enough to register activity in the fields around it. And that's measurable, right? That's not metaphorical. And obviously, your heart chakra works with that field like a translator, turning that energetic information into emotional or intuitive perception. And that is like the foundation of clairsentience, not like the dramatic, like I feel everything sort of cinematic over dramatization, but like the real regulated, precise sensing that your system is like naturally designed for. And then mirror neurons and interoception, which is the ability to feel your internal states, are the biological half of your intuitive sensitivity. And when you pair that with your energetic centers, your sacral and solar plexus chakras, which track authenticity and coherence, you start to understand how your whole system picks up truth long before your brain can arrange it into logical meaning. And then there's the default mode network in your brain that also supports claircognizance beautifully. So that network connects memory, pattern recognition, imagination, abstract reasoning. And it's really like the perfect cocktail for instantaneous knowing. So when your crown chakra is also then activated and clear, that's when claircognizance becomes like the most natural thing in the world. And clairvoyance and clairaudience have equal simple mechanics. The visual and auditory cortices don't care whether a stimulus is external or internal. They activate either way. So that's why imagining a lemon in your mind triggers the same brain regions as seeing one. And that's why your taste buds react. And your third eye and your throat chakras collaborate with these cortices. And that allows you to perceive subtle information as inner sight or inner sound. And that's not supernatural. It's just neural flexibility meeting energetic sensitivity. You already use your clairs in small and very subtle ways. You know, that feeling in your gut when someone's lying to you is clairsentience in its most domestic form. That tightness in your chest around certain people, or the way someone's tone hits your body right before you logically understand why, that's also clairsentience. The clairs are not gifts reserved for special people. They are dormant muscles, actually, deconditioned abilities, and long neglected sensory channels that are just waiting to be brought back online. And so the moment that you stop treating them like spiritual privileges and start treating them like biological and energetic collaborative intelligence, you realize that you're not awakening anything new in you. You're just restoring what really should have never been shut down in the first place. Now, if those abilities are innate and they're wired in both your biology and your subtle energy systems, then why isn't everyone just like casually sensing their highest truth, having visions of their highest timeline all the time? So having the hardware doesn't mean the system is necessarily always online. So a piano that's untouched is still a piano. It's not broken, it's just dusty because it hasn't been used. So the biggest reason people can't access their spiritual abilities is pretty simple. It's that most people are living with nervous systems that are operating in permanent fight or flight, freeze, brace for impact, survival mode. When you're stuck in sympathetic activation, your perception narrows. Because your root chakra, your solar plexus, your lower chakras, all your energy All of your energy centers and systems are not flowing smoothly. Your energy is not coherent. And subtle perception requires coherent energy, not survival energy. And that's why I spontaneously developed multidimensional sight and hearing and the ability to feel and move subtle energy after I achieved deep emotional liberation and thus deeper nervous system liberation and thus greater coherence earlier this year. My nervous system then had the capacity to operate truly multidimensionally, right? And then there's the mind. Most people entertain chronic rumination, they operate in hypervigilance, and are just mentally looping. And all of that drowns out intuitive and multidimensional signals. Intuition speaks with clarity, and fear speaks through anxiety. And your third eye chakra cannot filter clear insight when your mind is busy catastrophizing about like a text message that someone hasn't replied to yet. All that internal noise blurs your energetic sensitivity. And so that information can't really register as clarity for you, or it doesn't move through you cleanly. And again, trauma also plays like a huge role. When your body has learned that it is unsafe most of the time because you're harboring a ton of unresolved trauma, it disconnects from that subtle perception altogether, because the sacral and your root chakras, your sacral chakra, your heart chakras, they're not coherent because your nervous system has been conditioned to believe that sensitivity is dangerous. So something like clairsentience doesn't like disappear, it just gets rerouted into freeze, into numbness, into chronic tension, into over-intellectualizing. And that's all just survival adaptation. And then, of course, there's cultural conditioning that makes people distrust, devalue, and dismiss their abilities, like I said before. And there's also cultural shame around being sensitive. Sensitivity is treated like an inconvenience, like a flaw in modern culture. And many people fear these abilities because they've been made to be taboo. They've been villainized. They've been so misunderstood. A lot of people fear them ultimately because they're just ignorant about them, right? These clairs are unfamiliar. And people have fears developing these abilities because they also fear losing control. They fear being wrong. They fear being seen as crazy or an outcast or delusional or irrational. And then there's also information overload. Many people's spiritual and intuitive bandwidth just collapses under the weight of headlines and social media and too many opinions and constant notifications. Your energy field can't be coherent. It can't operate optimally when it's just processing constant input that is really just noise that overstimulates your throat, your third eye, your crown chakras. And so you have to learn to set boundaries. You have to cleanse yourself, cleanse your environment. You have to become coherent in order for you to not be negatively influenced by the nature of the modern world, which is just there's a lot of everything. But everything that shut down or suppressed your intuition and spiritual abilities is resolvable and reversible, and not through forcing, but through recalibration, through healing. Because as your nervous system softens, as it retrains itself back into coherence and harmony and feels safe again, as your energy centers start to operate coherently again, start communicating clearly again, as your field clears, as you become more coherent, that all means that you're going to start operating as a mind, body, soul system more efficiently, more optimally, and more cleanly. And then when your intuitive abilities naturally wake back up again, you're going to be able to receive them more cleanly. And so like one of the first things that happens when you reconnect with your intuition is that your internal safety cues start becoming more authentic, right? Your body actually starts telling you the truth again. And then you, like I said before, you can receive it clearly because you have stopped scanning for threats all the time, which means you can start perceiving reality for what it truly is. And then you're going to stop outsourcing your knowing. You're going to stop treating external voices from your parents or your partner, from algorithms, and even experts as the authority on your personal path. And not in a like, fuck you way, but in a sovereign, like, I am free to be me way. Because you're going to stop abandoning yourself in favor of approval or external validation. And that means you're going to start to live authentically. And then that means healing is naturally going to accelerate. And then that means trauma is going to untangle and resolve faster and more productively because there's finally enough internal space for clarity and safety to take root. And then as clarity and coherence returns, of course your emotions are going to start to regulate. Your thinking is going to stabilize. Your choices are going to stop being rooted in fear. And from that coherence, that's when you gain access to higher timelines, potentials, and choices that you didn't have before when you weren't as coherent and living as authentically. Because when your intuition comes back online and your system starts operating from regulation rather than survival, and then your spiritual gifts awaken, that means you naturally align with your highest self and your highest truths. And then monumental shifts happen. You stop resonating with lower timelines and you start resonating with higher timelines. That means your entire reality is going to change. And not because you quote unquote manifested it, but because you are now showing up as your authentic and highest self. Because you've stopped settling. You've stopped tolerating bullshit. You've stopped choosing to repeat wounded patterns. And you've started to make choices from your inner knowing and from your multidimensional badass self. So of course, that means that you're going to align with your highest good and path, e.g. your highest timeline. And again, that is not manifestation. Manifestation is built on the idea that you need to attract something, call something in, and prove your worthiness to the universe, or like perform spiritual gymnastics to align with abundance. But that is all outdated, distorted teachings. What happens when you awaken your true self and you start using your true gifts from coherence is that your coherence naturally aligns you with your highest timeline. That's how unlocking your intuitive and spiritual abilities like literally reshape your entire life and reality. Through precision, not through like woo-woo magical thinking, but through like measurable alignment with your highest reality that you don't have to chase because you just simply resonate with it. That's why I have a whole phase in my program, my membership program, the Source membership, that is designated for spiritual development, including your intuition and spiritual gifts, because they're not only your birthright, but they truly unlock not just your magic, but a more fun and joyful and aligned life with your highest self. Ignoring your intuition and keeping your spiritual gifts dormant is not a neutral thing. It's abandoning your potential. It's walking around with a dimmer switch on when you were built for full spectrum perception and magic. But the moment that you reawaken those innate abilities, whether, through subtle sensing or clear knowing, inner vision, or just finally trusting your inner knowings and signals, you then reclaim something that you really never should have felt disconnected from or distant from, which is your sovereignty. And that's the real invitation, coming back to the version of yourself who doesn't hesitate, who doesn't self-abandon, who doesn't ask for permission to know what they already know, to come back to the version of you who moves through life with clarity instead of confusion, with coherence instead of chaos. So here's your action step for the week. For the next 7 days, just choose one moment in your day, any time of the day, to do a multidimensional check-in. It's going to take just a few minutes, but it will reactivate the exact pathways that we talked about today in this episode, which is nervous system regulation, inner intuitive clarity, and subtle perception. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you're in a quiet, undistracted like environment and space. And you want to put one hand on your lower belly or solar plexus. Inhale through your nose, then ask your body, what are you sensing right now? Then exhale and do not think and just notice, tune into your body. Notice the first sensation or shift or tightening or softening or change in your body. Then the second thing is you want to place a hand on your heart, inhale through your nose, and then ask yourself, what feels true for me in this moment? And exhale, then let whatever emerge. Like that could be an emotion, it could be a word, it could be a yes or no, it could be an image, it could be a sound. That's going to reestablish your connection to your heart and start to foster heart coherence. Finally, close your eyes for 5 seconds. Tune in to yourself, inhale through your nose, and then ask yourself, what do I already know that I haven't acknowledged? And exhale, and do not force an answer. Don't force a vision or anything. Clear cognizance shows up cleanly, simply, just like an immediate knowing or a sentence, a direction, just quiet, clear clarity. Now, if nothing comes up, that's also a message. That's also an answer. And that's okay. Like if what you get is really subtle, let that be okay. That just means that your system is starting to wake up, starting to regulate. So you don't want to overwhelm it. You don't want to force it. And just know that if fear surfaces, then you were not getting a clear response, okay? That just means that you weren't truly regulated. Your intuition is neutral. It's not emotional. And your spiritual abilities are not derived from fear or anxiety or desperation. They're rooted in your truth. So claircognizance and clairvoyance are also going to feel pretty neutral, pretty unemotional. So the close of this practice is just saying to yourself, I trust what my system tells me. And that's it. Do that once a day. It takes a few minutes. And if you commit to that daily for 1 week, your intuitive channels are going to get noticeably louder, cleaner, and what's really important is they're going to start to feel more familiar. And just remember, like for now, the real benefit is not necessarily the information that you get. It's the relationship that you are rebuilding with your own internal authority. So many people seek the guidance of other people's clairs, right? Someone else's intuition, someone else's clairvoyance or psychic abilities or mediumship abilities. But you're psychic, you're intuitive. You have access to spirit and energy systems and energy fields. You are as connected as anyone else. It's just whether or not you are awake to that connection, whether you trust that connection, and whether that connection can move through you cleanly. You have all the answers to every single question you're ever going to have within you and around you in your field and through your own limitless consciousness. And when you become coherent so that your mind, body, nervous system, soul, consciousness can be clear and strong vessels for your multidimensionality, that's when you stop asking for magic to show up and you start wielding it as the source. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope this episode awakened you, inspired you, and reminded you of what's possible when you love, heal, and free yourself and reclaim your highest truth and power. If this show has transformed or enlightened your self-love, growth, and healing journey, please like, save, and share this episode and leave a positive review on Apple or Spotify. And subscribe to be reminded of new episodes. Your support is deeply appreciated and truly helps this show so much. And if today's episode resonated with you, don't stop here. Go deeper. My book, Unconditional, You Are Perfect As You Are, expands on these teachings and gives you the missing framework about self-love that no one is talking about. So get your copy today to start reading and loving yourself more. And if you're ready for the ultimate healing journey with daily instruction and guidance from me, I'd love to see you inside the Source membership, the only holistic and comprehensive step-by-step self-healing program that is proven to work. Remember, you were never meant to struggle or wait for what is already yours. It's time to claim everything you want and more. All the links are in the show notes. I'll see you next time.